Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show. Myself, Roy Shanahan, and Neil Dobbs. Just the two of us this evening, and probably thank God for that, because I'm not sure if I can handle both Neil and Dave after Manchester United got mauled, and mauled is probably too light a word. Neil, let's talk about Liverpool's side of things, because I suppose we get into Manchester United first of all. We'll never get out of it. Liverpool, first of all, as a supporter of Liverpool, you have to be delighted with how they were. But again, as Jamie Carragher said, they weren't even at full pace.
Yeah, I don't think they needed to be. It's just the nature of the game. I think as soon as they got the first goal, it settled the nerves. They just seemed to get in a kind of a mode as such, and they just kept chipping away. And just as a supporter, very comfortable. Got the second goal. I thought the game was over by the second goal, because I didn't think there was going to be an Atalanta scenario where they'd allow United to get back into the game. I fully expected Liverpool to power on through. And yeah, maybe they weren't at full speed, but very, very impressed, very clinical. Like, they got one or two chances and finished them all. And yeah, looked really, really dangerous at every opportunity.
When you look at the players that Liverpool have, and you've just compared Atalanta to, I suppose, Liverpool on this occasion, it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? I mean, as I said, Atalanta were missing nearly 6 players going into the second half of that game, first team players. Liverpool are strong. It's probably their strongest team, because he had the choice of who he wanted to put into the team. So Liverpool are a world-class side, and Manchester United, they just can't compare to that, and that's man for man around the pitch.
Yeah, I think, look, if you take Fabinho out of the equation, that's probably Liverpool's one of their strongest lines. He was the only one that really, pre-match, you were worried about. Maybe Kanate kind of as a debutant in such a big game away from home. But Liverpool are just chalk and cheese completely to Man United. They're a unit. They fight for each other. It's gas, actually, as a Liverpool supporter. In the pre-match, people were giving out that Firmino was in the side ahead of, say, Mane today, but it's normally ahead of Jota. But the work rate that Firmino has is just second to none. The way he tracks back, the way he, harries the defenders, he comes into the midfield, he makes the extra man in the midfield. He's on a par. He's on his own out there. Like, there's no Manchester United player, and be it the two dogs of war and Fred and McTominay, that can compete with the energy and the runs and the impact that a guy like Firmino has. So, yeah, for Liverpool, absolutely strong 11. I'm not saying I wasn't worried about it. I thought maybe if Fabinho had been fit, I think he would have gone into the 11. But yeah, he wasn't needed today, thankfully.
Yeah. Okay. That's probably enough about Liverpool, because it's all positive with Liverpool. The talking points are really Manchester United, because it's not that it was such an even game, or two teams are such level on par with each other, that this is an unbelievable victory for Liverpool. We've seen this, and we've talked about this week on week about Manchester United. I watch Manchester United on a regular basis. This is how Manchester United play all season. Since the start in August to now, they have played, whether they've won, drawn, or lost, the way they have played at the moment, and especially since Ronaldo came in, it's not surprising that Liverpool, I suppose, took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about it last week with the Leicester game, and I remember remarking in the second half that I fully expected to see Leicester see the game through, or at least score. I definitely thought United looked vulnerable. I didn't understand, in one way I was saying, I think that I didn't understand why United didn't press Leicester the way they did the previous 2 times. But now when you look at that today, you understand why they got caught out in the second half last week, and why they got caught out almost from the start today. If you flip 5 minutes after Bruno Fernandes's chance when he was on the back post and he blasted over, 5 minutes later they're 2-0 down, or definitely a goal down. It was incredible to see them press in ones, and it just nothing. There's no cohesion in the Man United midfield. And today, he made a call. He left out Pogba after Pogba's interview last week, or maybe because he just thought that was his best option. I had a feeling he'd revert back to McTominay and Fred. But again, regardless of what McTominay and Fred do, the other 4 or 5 around them just don't play as a unit. There's no trigger, there's no cohesion. Fernandes, Ronaldo were doing their little kind of half-hearted once presses. It was very lethargic from United. They showed a graphic on Sky saying they're the lowest number of yards covered, the lowest number of presses, they're basically an easy touch these days, and I don't know how they've become that, because they weren't that at the end of last year when they finished fairly strong.
And again, to talk about the transition, is it a transition where they're trying to stop playing counter-attacking football and now be, as I said last week, Liverpool playing the front foot? But are Manchester United trying to play in the front foot? If they are, and has been commented load of times on the television today, they're not being coached to do it. They're not being coached to do it right. At loads of occasions that I watched the game, when Manchester United were defending, they had 4-2, which were McTominay and Fred, and then the others were all over the place, and there was gaps between them, left, right, and centre. And even when the ball went back in a second phase for Liverpool, it might have went back to the back line, back into midfield again. Maybe one of those players had made it back, but a lot of the time it was 4-3-3, and the three players would have stayed up front, which would have been Rashford, Greenwood, and Ronaldo. So there was gaps all over the place for Liverpool to exploit, and you may get away with that with some of the lower ranked teams, but against Liverpool, that's just a dream.
Yeah, like I was thinking to myself during the week, would he revert back to the two holders, or would he actually come out and go at Liverpool? And I remember commenting online saying that I really, really hope Man United take the game to Liverpool and come at them, because generally, 9 out of 10 times when a team goes at Liverpool, with the exception of Manchester City, Liverpool pick them apart. They find gaps. They get in behind them very easily. And I mean, the space that Mo Salah had to set up the first goal for Keita was absolutely criminal. Like, he was in the middle of the park where there should be one, if not two, centre halves. He's in between the two of them, and he's just laying across the easiest path. I don't know where Luke Shaw was at this stage, but it was just too easy. And again, it like we mentioned it on the show last week. We'd heavy emphasis on, almost as if it's a magic thing. This thing of working hard, of running, of making tackles, of tracking back, like bursting your backside 60 yards to get back. Like, I had an under 12s game yesterday, and you wouldn't stand for your two wingers standing on the halfway line, half-heartedly jogging back. So at the most basic level of football, you have to get that right. And Manchester United just are not getting it right.
So this comes down to instruction. What instruction is being given out to the players? If this, as we see and many others see, has happened throughout this season so far, the instruction obviously isn't there. They're not being told you got to work harder, you're out of the team, because these players are still in the team. So does this come down to the players, or does it come down to Solskjaer?
I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Solskjaer. It has to be. Like, he came in the interview and said he thought his backroom staff were brilliant and waxed a bit of lyrical just to kind of say, look, I'm responsible for it, which is fair enough. But you know yourself, Roy, at the end of the day, you're playing in the image of your manager. You're playing in the style of your manager. You're playing with your manager's ideas. If we were to contrast, and again, I don't understand why Man United didn't watch Atletico Madrid versus Liverpool midweek, because Atletico Madrid defended with all 11 men behind the ball so deep. But when they broke with intent, and they actually cut Liverpool apart on several occasions. Liverpool were very fortunate to get out of that game. Why did Man United not think? And they did it last year an awful lot. They sat deep, kind of like Leicester, and then they played in Vardy. They sat deep, they played in Rashford, they played in Greenwood. They've done it on some occasions, but clearly the instruction has changed. There's no way you sit down, even at half time. Like, he would have analytics at the game, looking at it saying, we're not pressing back, our players aren't running, or somebody hasn't passed 5K or whatever it would be. How they wouldn't know that going, even at half time, don't mind anything else. In any game that they've watched, but the instruction has to be different. He must be giving them different instruction. I'm not saying to be lazy, but he's allowing, two or three players, your Greenwoods, your Rashfords, and maybe even your Fernandes in particular. He's allowing them a license to make their own decisions, and he's not holding them accountable for not getting back. Every team has to have hard working players working back. You've seen it with Chelsea yesterday. You've seen it with Liverpool today, and Man United are in big trouble if they're allowing their front four to kind of casually track back towards goal.
And you heard Gary Neville at full time talk about the stats, talked about the running distances that Manchester United are putting in as a team and how low they are. one of the lowest ranked teams in the Premier League for the amount of running that they do. As you said, that's the basics of football. You work hard and then you build on that. And then obviously your skills and abilities come on top of that. So work rate is absolutely everything. So if Gary Neville has that information, Sky Sports have that information, that means Manchester United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his team have that information. So that does put him into question then, because he's not getting the most out of his team, and he has that information from the first day of this season till now.
Yeah.
So it's really damning on his managerial term so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, right, I mentioned earlier on about Atletico Madrid. Like, they put in an absolute top-class shift from 1 to 11. Antoine Griezmann was tracking back to the edge of his 18-yard box the other night after scoring 2 goals. Now, fair enough, he kicked someone in the head and got sent off, but he was there making the tackle, putting the pressure on. It was very, very impressive how Atletico set up. Do you think Simeone would sit inside the dressing room, even after one game, of looking at his stats and people telling him that his team were not, the most defensive, the most runs, the most recovery runs? There's absolutely no way. Thomas Tuchel's another one. He went into the Chelsea dressing room and absolutely had no respect for any names, any price tags. And it just appears to me now that Solskjaer, I don't know if he is a soft touch. He comes across as a very nice guy. Even his interview tonight was very, I thought, genuine enough, as if he's saying, look, I don't quite know, but we're going to find the answers. I'm okay with that. But, no other top manager would allow his team. If you're a big club like Man United in particular, there's no top class manager would allow your team that's chasing top 4 to be in the bottom 4 for the simple things like running and pressing and tracking back. There's absolutely no others. And again, even when you had Mourinho, you put in a serious shift. Van Gaal, you put in a serious shift. Something has changed this season in the last 7 or 8 games that Man United are not working as hard as they used to. And it has to come back to the training ground, the staff, the instruction that they're given, because you can't hide stats.
Do you feel that maybe it's because the bigger name players come in, the more they come in, the more Solskjaer is maybe not as confident with these players and maybe letting them do their own thing a little bit? You've seen it when in Europe where he started to nearly apologise to Ronaldo for taking him off.
Yeah,
that's you don't see that. It's unheard of. I've never seen managers saying sorry when he was taking a player off before.
Yeah, you look at Jurgen Klopp, right, when he subs Mane off or he subs Salah off, sometimes they have a little strop, and Klopp laughs it off, goes, yeah, well, it's my job to make the tough decision, and it's almost saying also tough shit to them. They'll come off when I tell them they're coming off. Like, I couldn't imagine Thomas Tuchel turning around and apologising to Lukaku for resting him for the last 15 minutes, or Havertz, or whoever it is. But do you know what it is, Roy, as well? When you're a manager at that level, it's almost so important at the moment that you deal with big egos, with big personalities. There's very, very few managers that manage in the game anymore that have never been in a dressing room and dealt with them kind of egos. I don't think there's any, maybe as in at top level clubs. You have to now, you look at Solskjaer, he would have been part of a dressing room, but I'm not saying he has, as you saying there, maybe he doesn't have the respect or doesn't have the confidence himself to put it up to Cavani, to Ronaldo, to Sanchez. There's a couple of them in there. I don't know what it is, but he certainly seems to be struggling with the size of the egos in his dressing room, that he can't get them under control. Because as I said, to name a few, Simeone and Tuchel, I guarantee you would have benched Paul Pogba a long time ago, would be eating a crap out of Fernandes for doing the gesturing, this gesturing thing he does. There's absolutely no way they'd stand for that. And there's no way they'd apologise to Ronaldo for bringing him off the pitch. And that's a fact.
Yeah. When you look at the side, Neil, people have been talking about this player should be in, that player should be out. He shouldn't be playing on the left side. He shouldn't be playing centre midfield. Does any of that matter if the structure isn't there?
No, I don't think so. But I mean, if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ryan, I think he made a call last week after the interviews after the game. Remember, Pogba came out and spoke, and Maguire came out and spoke, and he benched Pogba midweek, and he benched Pogba again today. So Solskjaer is basically saying, he's not making him a scapegoat, but he's basically saying, right, you want me to make big decisions, I'm leaving you out. And then it must be his worst nightmare at half time to be 4-0 down. And your last hope or your biggest hope is to bring bloody Paul Pogba off the bench and go against his original gut decision. That's a horrible situation to be in as a manager and as a player, because you're relying on him almost to get you out of jail, to do something. And then what does he do on the field? He goes on and throws in a 2-footed tackle, which I don't think I've ever seen Pogba do something like that before, which was probably out of character, but still reckless and a total lack of respect to his teammates to leave them out there a 4-0 down and a man down. Like that, as you look on yourself, that must have hurt you watching that when you seen that red card was coming.
Well, it was a stupid challenge. There was no need for it. The area that they were in, there was no need for it. Anyone who makes a tackle like that, they know that there is a chance that they're going to hurt someone, because you're going in stretching. You have to be showing your studs. I never did go in for a challenge that was like that, where you stick a leg out and you put the studs high into someone. What you do is you always went in for a hard challenge. You may have fouled people, but you never went in high with studs to try and break someone's ankle, or overstretch and try and break someone's ankle. And it looked to me like it was laziness, first of all. And second of all, it's Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba doesn't seem to fit with Manchester United. People say he fits with France. I'm not so sure he fits with France either. As in, I think that it's just that he was with so many talented players in that unit, and it's a well-structured unit, and he does what he's told to do. He's with Manchester United. He wouldn't do the work for Mourinho, so he was out. He's able to do what he wants under Solskjaer, so he gets worse. And I think it's a situation where he needs to go. I can't see a future for Paul Pogba at Manchester United. I suppose it's up to Solskjaer whether if he's there or not. And we'll ask you that question, Neil. Should Ole Gunnar Solskjaer get time, or is it time to start looking elsewhere?
I think we kind of hinted on the show last week before this debacle today that I felt, and this is as a rival supporter, I'm really, really comfortable with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge of Man United. Really, really comfortable. I just don't think he's had opportunities to win finals, to win games. I'm delighted he stays there. Like, I mean, I rate him up. Like, him and David Moyes now are literally at the top of my two of my favourite Man United managers ever. He's literally going to eclipse Moyes at this stage, which is absolutely unforgivable. So, again, the only reason why I'd say, Roy, I wouldn't get rid of him yet. You need someone that's going to come in. It's that right guy. When you're saying there, Paul Pogba isn't a fit for Man United, you need a manager that's going to be a fit for Manchester United. It wasn't Mourinho, it wasn't Van Gaal, it wasn't Moyes, now it isn't Solskjaer. But who is it going to be? So someone needs to make that connection with the way the guy wants to play football, with the football they want to play, with the achievements they want to make. It's a mammoth big club. Like, I mean, even the new manager coming in now, the talent that he would have at his disposal is absolutely phenomenal to the group of players that's there. You just got to get them playing better football, fighting for each other, scrapping for every ounce. I don't see that at the moment. But on the other hand, Roy, as well, there's not many Simeones out there. There's not many Klopps out there. There's not many Guardiolas out there. Where do you find that guy that's going to come in and completely change almost the culture of the club, that will build it in his image? Will, like Simeone wouldn't work at Man United because he's too volatile and he plays horrible football. That probably wouldn't entertain the Man United fans. Tuchel could go in there. You would imagine that type of character where he will play decent football, but he's ruthless. But he was a better fit for Chelsea. So who is the best fit? Like, out there, managers at the moment, there's very, very few. Who do you go with now? They're talking about Antonio Conte. He, again, is a very abrasive character. So where do you go? You got to get the next appointment right. So I'm not saying this season is a write-off, but I'd be very careful in getting rid of him purely because you got to get the next appointment correct. And that's what's more important for Man United right now.
So you talked about Diego Simeone. He wouldn't be the right fit. He plays ugly football. Is ugly football as in defensive football and counter-attacking football? It's what Solskjaer was doing anyhow. Is that not probably the way forward for Manchester United at the moment? Because there is no other. You've got the Klopps, you've got Guardiola, they're at clubs. Tuchel, he's at a club. There's not many others. Pochettino, who they could have taken at one stage if they got rid of Solskjaer
Yeah.
before he had a job, he was probably someone that you could have taken on. Yes, there was loads of questions about him. He hadn't won anything. He's gone to Paris Saint-Germain. He still hasn't won anything. So, yeah, there was questions about him. But if you wanted that style of play, that's the kind of manager you're looking at. Otherwise, now you're starting to look at some of the maybe unknown managers from other countries. So are you looking at, you look at Simeone, yes, he's going to sit back. Yes, he's going to counter attack. But you know well, you'll get 100% out of the players, unlike Solskjaer. You'll get work rate. And also, he'll pick the right team because he won't suffer any fools at all there. He'll make sure that if you're going to work hard, you're in the team. And if you're not going to work hard, because all these players are talented, it's all about the work rate.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I say I don't know if Simeone, I mean, Simeone is literally the opposite in my eyes to a guy like Solskjaer. I don't think when you look at the way Simeone sets up his team, he wouldn't have had definitely not four attack-minded, your Greenwood, your Rashford, your Fernandes. There's absolutely no way he would have all four of them starting in his lineup. When you look at his team, he used to play Diego Costa, maybe a Griezmann in behind him, and the rest were real talented but workhorse players that were going to give 100%. It would be interesting what he would do. It's one of these scenarios, when you think to yourself, give him Man United's best 11 and see what he could do with Solskjaer's team. Could he change it? Could he improve it? I'd nearly guarantee he'd improve it. I nearly guarantee he'd have them working like dogs. I guarantee you he would have them on their toes. Just long term, I don't know. You know the way people say the Spurs like to be entertained, they like a certain brand of football. I think Man United fans, definitely anyone over the age of 30, would appreciate the Alex Ferguson attacking through wings, that kind of style of play. Would they give all that up to win and get results? You're damn right they would. But yeah.
Maybe long term, as you said already, Neil. No, right. The back four were terrible, but I think Luke Shaw was the worst. A few goals came down his side. He's okay going forward, but a poor defender. I would agree and disagree. I agree that yes, goals came down his side. But I do think that there was so many different blunders from, as they were talking about on the goal in the first one. Wan-Bissaka leaves his right full position and goes high up the field. That brings Lindelof across. That brings Maguire across to take his man. And then that brings Shaw across then to try and cover the centre. That happened on a couple of occasions. And it happened down the left-hand side as well. I couldn't say that he was any worse than Wan-Bissaka. But again, people are out of position for reasons. And if they're not being coached right, which it looks hugely like they're not being coached right, because yes, you're going to have problems in games. You have to come up with solutions. And these problems have been there at the start of the season, and there's no solutions now at all. Neil, again, when you look at the players today in Manchester United, and even if you look at the players of Liverpool, when I look at the Liverpool players, I look at the back four. Who played out of their skin? I don't see anyone who played out of their skin. They played as a unit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's the key to the back four, isn't it? Now, I wouldn't pick Shaw apart today either, but I will say he got caught forward a few times where he just looked totally at sea. Now, that was because Man United turned over possession at strange times. If you look at the Mo Salah, the hat-trick goal, they got the ball off Pogba through the middle. They attacked them. They won the ball. And the next thing you know, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw were caught 25 yards up the field. So there was another one, I think, where was it Rashford paid like a 70-yard back pass right to Mo Salah. So it's hard to blame the defenders when your team are unpredictable. And Man United turned over possession really, really strangely today. They gave away some really strange possession because they were all individuals. They weren't working as a unit. And as a result, then the back line became badly, badly exposed because Harry Maguire isn't blessed with pace, which is again why the fifth goal went in. But yeah, that comes from not being a unit, not moving up as a unit, not moving across as a unit. But I'll also say, I think there was one point in the second half where maybe it was early second half, Trent lost the ball trying to do a kind of a meg or something in the middle of the field. And he ran back as quick as he could. And who popped up in the edge of the box? Mo Salah pops up to block the bloody attacker. Like, you were like, where would you get that? Or you wouldn't see Fernandes, you wouldn't see Mason Greenwood making a 70-yard unselfish run back. So maybe it's just not being bred into them as a culture more than anything else.
Yeah, well, as far as the more people talk about it, the more we discuss it, it's down to the manager and the management team to get that work rate out of them. If they're not working hard, obviously the players should do it off their own back. But if they're not, that's where the manager and the coaches step in to make sure that if you're not doing it, you're not in that team, and maybe you're not even in the club. So we'll probably leave that one there, Neil, because we could talk about Manchester United and their failings for a whole hour. We'll just
No harm.
finish. We finish. We finish on Liverpool. Neil, where do you see Liverpool now? They seem like they're in a very, very strong position this year, don't they?
Yeah, so I know Keita got an injury today, and I don't think that's my only concern at the moment is the midfield area. So Milner pulled up, I think, with a hammer, which he tends to do twice a season because you can't play him midweek and then play him on a weekend. Keita come in and he obviously got broke up by Pogba. So Harvey Elliott is out. Curtis Jones is back from injury. There's only, and Fabinho had a slight knock. Now they've good numbers in there, but the only thing I can see coming into the kind of new year, you just got to make sure that you have enough numbers for options in there. The players seem to be fresh enough. Like he brought in Oxlade-Chamberlain again today, so maybe he's going to have to keep giving Ox 10, 20 minutes here and there to keep him a little bit sharper, because at the end of the day, you can't bring the guys in from a totally cold position. So for me, I think Liverpool are exactly where they want to be. They've kind of proven that last year is gone now. It's finished. I think they're mentally a lot stronger with Van Dijk there. It's just a question, can they overhaul Chelsea and City? And Chelsea and City are very formidable at the moment. But I think at the moment they're doing all that's asked of them. They look really sharp. They've loads of goals in them. Firmino, Mane have rediscovered their form. So I think they'll be thereabouts. I think it's a big ask to win the league because just the quality of Chelsea and City. But I think they'll give it everything. I think they'll go right to the wire if they can. So at the moment, very happy where they are, and they're kind of exactly where you want to be, kind of 9-10 games in.
Okay, that's enough about Liverpool. So, 5-0 hammering. And there's just one thing I want to say, because this is something I noticed during the game. It was on 18 minutes. I think United were probably 2-0 down at that time. Liverpool got a goal kick. Alisson was going to get the ball, and the camera went straight onto Solskjaer, and he was just about to say something. And he's looking across the pitch, and then didn't say it, and then was looking across, and then went, and then didn't say anything again, and then never said anything at all. And the camera steadied him for a while, and it just gave me the sense that he was looking to see where the problems were, but he hadn't got the answers, and he hadn't got the vocab or the knowledge to say how to actually fix the problem. And I just thought that was a very worrying sign that he wasn't able to, put his thoughts across at that very moment. It may be something simple. Maybe he'd turn around and tell me it was something simple and they fixed themselves out on the pitch. But for me, it kind of stood out that he didn't really know how to fix this, and 2-0 down. We have one more from John Mark. If Liverpool get two good signings in January, they'll be close. Lots of injuries at the moment, and Salah and Mane will be off to the African Nations Cup. That's a big point, isn't it? That could be make or break now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was reading during the week, best case scenario, they miss 3 games. Worst case scenario, they could miss 6 games or something like that, which is unforgivable. So again, I think you can cope with Mane being out, which is proven today once you Firmino and you Jota. But Mo Salah missing any game at the moment is maybe mentally on the team that could be tough, because you're missing your talisman. He doesn't rest him. Mo's good to play every game. He's one of them type of characters. But yeah, big ass. So Liverpool need to build up ahead of steam. But to say, John, I don't see Liverpool getting to first 11 signings in January, but if you could pick up someone in and around the 30, 40 million, it's funny, like I was watching Leicester during the week, they picked up your man Daka and he got 4 goals. He looked great. So can you pluck that guy that's going to give you a little bit of something? I think most Liverpool supporters would agree it's not going to be Divock Origi because that ship has sailed, but they need someone in there to keep it fresh, especially in the front 3.
Yeah, another Jota. Can you get another one of
another
them?
Jota. Yeah.
That's not that easy. Okay, listen,
I'm
we
sure
go
the
on
stats
to
guys are looking. The money
we go on
ballers.
to Chelsea and Norwich. And Neil, I think there's a case now to say and I know we've been slagging Norwich an awful lot over the last few weeks, but there's a case to say that Norwich probably shouldn't be allowed to be in the Premier League again with the way they approach the league and how they have a go. To be a Norwich supporter, to be beaten 7-0 by Chelsea, fair enough. It happens. Things happen at time. But the way they're losing to teams, they're never in these games. They're always struggling. They always seem weak. The players that they have in, championship players that are never going to progress any further than being a good championship player. They never seem to build on what they do in the championship, and they always seem nearly content with going back down again. And they're really wasting a space in the Premier League. When you look at the likes of Brentford, who come up, even Blackpool when they come up those years ago, gave it a right good go. Norwich have been, diabolical really over the last few years. And really, the Norwich board should be ashamed of how they've put themselves about in the Premier League.
Yeah, but Roy, I don't think the Norwich board give a what happens in the Premier League. They clearly don't, because, what do they say? You make a mistake and then you do it again and again is the epitome of madness, really. But they seem to be happy to come up, take the money, take the balloon payment, go down, rinse and repeat. And if they're doing it now, 5 years or something, that they've bounced up and down. They've stuck with Daniel Farke. He's Jesus, the highlights of the Chelsea game were absolutely woeful. I mean, you talk about whatever about instruction he's given on the field. He tried to match Chelsea's 3-5-2 and just horribly got it wrong. Some of the clips that they took of the games of them defending goals was, at one stage, Chelsea had 4v3 against them, against their back three. And the whole Norwich team are on the halfway line. The whole rest of them, other than the three defenders. So, terribly coached at the moment. They're not getting it right. He's trying experimental things. I don't think he's under any pressure. If Daniel Farke leaves, he's got them promotion twice. It's no big deal. But the Norwich board, I don't think care at the end of the day. They're happy to get the money, whatever way they invest the money. It keeps them afloat. They sell their best players. That's their business model. It's just a pity for the fans in the stand that have to watch every second year as you get absolutely pummeled from start to finish in the Premier League. Like, I know we joke that they're relegated, but they're gone. They are absolutely gone. And I don't think anyone in Norwich or anyone associated with them really believes that they're getting out. They're finished. And it's terrible 9 games in to know that you're already gone.
Yeah, okay. Let's not waste a breath on Norwich anymore. Unless they win next time, which will clap them and pat them on the back. But Chelsea are ruthless at the moment. I suppose for Manchester United, they can only be happy that they're not Norwich, because Norwich were just that bit worse than the way Manchester United defended. Again, watching the game, watching these players get on the ball, watching them taking shots, and really and truly, Chelsea took every bit of advantage of every little opportunity that they could take. And Mason Mount he's just a quality player who will punish it at every chance that he can take.
Yeah, Tuchel's doing something a little different this year, because obviously he got the start of the league, where he is blooding these young players, and he's kind of building the team now around the young Chelsea Londoners, which I know Joe Cole was talking about it yesterday, saying that that's something he needs to do to get an identity with the players and, on and off the pitch for the fans. So he's after getting a couple of players now really, really playing well. Ben Chilwell is playing well, even though he's in and out of the team. But yeah, Mason Mount at the moment is really, really looking like a serious player. I'd say himself and Phil Foden at the moment have to be the two best players in their positions, I think, as in young players that are up and coming, that you would probably have the most confidence are going to be genuine, excellent players. But in Mount, they have a diamond, I think, there. He's really looking after him. He's bringing him in and out of the squad this year, which has shown a little bit of respect. And yeah, he's keeping him chomping at the bit. So he like Tuchel can do no wrong at the moment. He could play Mason Mount the right foot, he'd probably be getting him goals. But for now, I think Chelsea really looks settled. Massive squad, massive investment, and they're getting everything right. And Mason Mount is pivotal to that if they really want to win the big prizes.
Now, you had a little chat with me over a text with the Manchester City and Brighton game about how Potter approached the game. Discuss that.
Yeah, like we were talking last week, maybe the last 2 weeks, that Graham Potter had kind of gone under the radar. Maybe he wasn't a fashionable kind of manager, he wasn't like one of the big, the top six. But yeah, he was had Brighton playing lovely football, nice attacking football, lovely brand of football. But Jesus, he got it so badly wrong against Man City the other night. I don't know whether his ego took over. He dropped Duffy because he felt he didn't want to leave him up against Grealish, and he had his three centre halves playing football with their goalkeeper for about 25 minutes. And then they were absolutely minced by trying to attack Man City and just leaving themselves so vulnerable. He played five across the middle, and Mopé up front. And man, every time they turned over possession, like they should have been 5-0 down within the first 25 minutes, because City just tore them apart. And it didn't matter what happened. They lost the ball at silly times, and it was all them not necessarily getting pressed into mistakes, but overplaying the ball from the back three into the middle. City must have won the ball, I'd say, 18 out of 20 times. It just, it stank of naivety to me that he would go out against City and think, we're going to give them a game of ball here. Now, I know they had a good result against them last year where they think they came from 2 down, but it just felt like fanciful thinking. And I thought he really got badly caught out. And he was lucky that game wasn't an 8 or 9-0, because it should have been. I thought Brighton were just, it's probably the wrong thing to say, but I thought they showed City no respect. Normally you try to keep it tight for the first 20, 25 minutes, not go gung-ho at them. And that's what they ended up doing, and they got punished.
When you look at City, you look at Liverpool, who do you think has the edge?
Jesus. City squad is just bloody ridiculous. I think Mo Salah and his form, it gives Liverpool better maybe as a finisher, as in I would, in a game of kind of, if this was a game in Europe or something like that and you were trying to nick a goal, I would back Mo Salah to get that goal. I still think, like with Paris Saint-Germain, what they did to City can happen to City. But over the course of a season, 38 games, City still just have the upper hand a little bit. I think it's just dependent on whether they can keep clicking or whether they have a little sticky period where maybe they might fall a few points behind. It's hard to know. There's no chinks in their armour, and yeah, I'd put City a little bit ahead of Liverpool. I think their odds, even in the likes of Paddy Power, are slightly ahead of Liverpool, and I think probably rightly so. But Liverpool would need to get out ahead of them, especially coming into the Christmas period, because I think that's the best way to apply a bit of pressure to City. If you let them get ahead of you by 7 or 8 points, I think they're gone. You'll never reel them back in. That's for sure.
Now, Dilly Dong, Ranieri comes into his first proper game, if you want to call it that. He had a first week's training. He's gone down 2-1 to Everton with a matter of 15 minutes to go, and the game ends up 5-2. It's kind of a mental result, really, altogether. But a great way to start his Watford week and term, because this is going to give them huge confidence, and it's going to give him huge confidence, because the players are going to start believing in what he's talking about.
Yeah, it's funny actually watching. I watched most of the second half, and it almost felt like he kind of unleashed the shackles off them, especially in the last 20, 30 minutes. And Watford just seemed to flood Everton. Everton were real negative. They were kind of stuck in a shape, but they'd nothing going forward. Like I know Richarlison come on and scored, but they badly miss Calvert-Lewin as someone to lead the line to get them up the pitch. Everton just didn't seem to be able to get up the pitch and stay up there. It all came back, and they just didn't look comfortable. And I think it was funny when I watched the game, I thought, the one team you don't want to give a lead to is Everton, because they'll sit there now and they'll choke the life out of you. It was such a non or un-Rafa-like performance to see them ship the goals that they did. But if you looked at the last 3 goals, Everton were all at sea for them. Like, they were real sloppy goals. But it only happened because Everton almost had to revert and go for it then when they went to go behind, and then they just went very, very ragged. So yeah, for Ranieri, brilliant result. He really needed that badly. So to get stunk last week and then to win this week is a great result for him. But he'll need more of them. But King looked really, really good for them up front. So that's a big, big positive.
And what about Arsenal? Arsenal on a bit of a run at the moment. Villa also on a bit of a run, but it's not as good as Arsenal. In other words, Villa are kind of in a sticky patch at the moment. when you look at Arsenal, is he getting it right, or is just things going right for them?
I think we hit the nail on the head a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember we were saying about Ben White and Gabriel being their best defensive duo? They've also got Partey back. They have even Lacazette. They've gotten a tune out of him, but they're sticking with the kind of, Aubameyang, Smith Rowe, and Saka, and they're all in good form at the moment. So we kind of challenged them maybe 6 weeks ago that their senior players had to stand up and lead that team because they look leaderless and rudderless. So the likes of the spine of their team with Gabriel and White, I think, is strong. Partey coming back in is added to them. But Aubameyang finally now is showing back up and he's beginning to lead that line better. So you throw the mix of the young kids in there and all of a sudden they look like a team. And I mean, Arsenal always bred good players, but they were just too kind of like a sieve at the back. They could never defend right. So he seems to be getting the balance right. I think it's helped with all the players returning. And even funny enough, and I know we knocked Ramsdale for being a 25 million goalkeeper, what were Arsenal doing? But since he's come into the side, he's looked a lot more solid, and so their defence. So maybe that was something that no one else seen but Arteta. So you got to tip his hat to that one.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, Neil. I don't think it was Ramsdale. I think it was that there was other positions that they probably could have spent the money on, and
and the money that they spent on him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're having a few technical issues, so we're going to finish off on this one because West Ham beat Spurs today, and one of the world's greatest strikers got the goal. Dave obviously didn't come on today because he didn't want to talk about Antonio, but West Ham, and as much as you slagged David Moyes off for his Manchester United term, he's having a huge impact there at West Ham.
Yeah, he's absolutely getting it right. And Roy, I watched their midweek game as well in Europe, and sometimes they always say the Europa League can hinder a team in the Premier League when they play midweek and then they play in the weekend. West Ham and their stadium was rocking midweek when they played their game. And it's almost like it's galvanized them now. They feel they're making progress. They're going up a level. They played really, really well midweek. And there you are. They're after bearing fruit now in the London Derby the weekend as well. So massive result. David Moyes has the formula. He's a way of playing. I would even say he showed a ruthless streak in moving Mark Noble out, which previous managers were afraid to do. And he's got the formula right now, and that's why they're scoring goals and doing well. So, yeah, you got to tip your hat to him. It's a good position to be in. And West Ham seem to be in a real good vein of form at the moment, as is Antonio, one of the best.
Right, we'll leave that one there. Our Spurs beaten, but again, they're trying to find their feet as much as any other team there, and they're still up there on 15 points, so it's not the end of the world, and you would expect for them to steady up as the season progresses. Neil, we're going to leave it there. Thanks for everyone who was watching tonight, and we'll talk to you next week.